The Alabama Crimson Tide have done things a certain way for a very long time. Since Nick Saban arrived in 2007, they ran a very specific style defense. It's a pattern match defense, which is really zone coverage, but actually it's man. So yes, you're responsible for a certain part of the field. You're responsible for a certain receiver or a guy that would enter into your passing zone. But really, it's man the way you pass off coverage from one guy to the next. So it's man coverage, and it's a very complicated scheme. But it's one that they ran with great effectiveness for the better part of the last 2 decades. Now, things are going to change quite a bit, because they always kind of rooted their defense in a traditional 3-4 defensive front, even though college football kind of adjusted and they became a lot more 4-2-5 as more and more teams went to the spread to try to neutralize the advantages that Alabama had when lined up in their 3-4. So they've already started to make this adjustment, but it's going to change, I think, a little bit more under Kane Womack, who is terrific, by the way. I thought this was a terrific hire for Kalen DeBoer. If you look at what Kane Womack did, he was the head coach of South Alabama, and prior to his arrival, they had allowed about 37 points per game. That's what the Jags had given up. Well, they improved to only 25 points per game in Kane Womack's first season, and then 24 points per game in the next season. Now, he got hired by Indiana at the Power 5 level, where he happened to overlap with Kalen DeBoer for just 1 year. And if you look at what Indiana was defensively in the Big Ten when Kane Womack was hired, they clearly overachieved in 2019. And that was the year that Kane Womack and Kalen DeBoer were there. They allowed only 24 points per game. And the Hoosiers at that point had allowed 33 points per game for the 10 years prior, and 29 since Kane Womack left. Now, the personnel should be rock solid. At Mike linebacker, you have an All-American candidate in Deontay Lawson. At the Sting linebacker, you have Jahad Campbell, who filled in admirably last year when Deontay Lawson was sidelined with an injury. Now, the edges of the defense is something that I'll be paying very close attention to. Now, Quandarius Robinson, he's a veteran. He's going to get plenty of cracks at it, but I expect it to be a defensive end pass rush by committee type of team. Keanu Cott has a chance to, I think has a chance to be a real difference maker there on the edge. Keon Keeley, Jean-Zé Pierre, and Quay Rousseau, those guys are all probably in position to have a big impact on the edges of that defense. But at corner, that's an important piece that Kane Womack and Kalen DeBoer need to figure out after this first spring. You likely have Damani Jackson, who will be the top corner. He transferred over from USC, has high-level Power 5 experience and elite speed, was a blue-chip recruit a couple years back, but who's going to occupy the other spot? It's likely to be Jaleel Hurley there at the very beginning, but there's a bunch of guys that they're going to be evaluating at that spot here throughout the rest of spring, throughout summer. They could add a piece in the portal if one becomes available, but that's something that I would be keeping a close eye on, is that corner opposite Damani Jackson. At the safety spots, they should be in good spot. The rover, more than likely to be Malachi Moore, a guy that's really versatile, can move all over the place, can play at the nickel spot, can play at the safety spot. At Husky, probably looking at Tony Mitchell, who's really good, built kind of like a linebacker, so you get that versatile piece that if he has to play against the run, he can handle that. Then at free safety, you'll have some combination of Keon Sabb and Devontae Smith, either of which should be rock solid. And in the event in which both play, then that can free Malachi Moore to play up and play some different positions. So I think they have a lot of answers, but structurally, it will be very different for the Crimson Tide, and they'll be playing a lot more vision coverage. Vision coverage basically being a real fancy way of saying zone, as opposed to the man coverage that we saw for the last 17 years.